It's an absolutely wild day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Anger is exploding over the new Unfinity set, and on top of that, Unfinity is going to be the last set that gets a pre-release.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for an absolutely insane installment of Mega Magic news. We've got pre-release news. We've got the insane Unfinity happenings. And ultimately, it looks to me like this might be the very end of the unset. Because what's going on, in case you're not aware, is this is the fourth unset that Wizards has made. And it is a wild divergence from the previous unsets. And the reason for that is the previous unsets did not do well as Magic products, and the only cards that most players cared about were the basic lands from that set. So, as the unsets progressed, it got to the point where Wizards went, okay, the only thing that really matters in these are the lands. So by the time they made the Unstable set, they were putting the little stamps onto the lands, and that was the big draw. Check it out, you can get a foil crazy looking basic land. That's all Un had to offer. So they went back to the drawing board, and they did try releasing a little box set that went okay, but now they're back with a full-on unset, but it really is unlike any of the unsets we've seen before. In one way, half of the set is actually tournament legal. So it's put into Commander, it's put into the vintage formats. Now this has people worked up. This is one of the things that's angering people. This is one of the older aspects that we already knew about, right? Because this frustrates people on both sides of the fence. If you are an unlover, all of a sudden, all your silver bordered goodness has been downgraded to black bordered, right? So if you have cards that care about silver bordered cards, because there are cards that care about that, all of a sudden you can no longer use them with these new acorn cards, because that's what Wizards has done. What they're attempting to do is Trojan horse the Un into Magic overall and force the arguments to happen table to table. Instead of the Commander Rules Committee going, silver bordered cards aren't allowed in Commander, Wizards of the Coast tried to go, hey, come on, let Unstable in, and they did for like a month, and Wizards went, not good enough. You know what? We're just going to make black bordered cards and force them in. So you have a situation where the Un stuff is essentially being forced in. You have a bunch of goofy stuff that's being added in. Now, just the acorn cards, people who don't like Un stuff, that's fine. But then they have an issue with the other stuff that is still Un stuff, but entering into the tournament environment because of the goofiness, right? So you've got that first layer that already kind of poisons the well for Un, where Wizards tried to reach out to everybody with this product, but it just doesn't work, right? They put in the Space Shocks, they put in the basics, but ultimately they didn't have enough faith in the product to make set boosters. They just went with regular boosters and collector boosters. So the collector boosters have a list, and this is one of the things that's actually frustrating people who are into the Un cards, the people who would be the buyer of the collector boosters. So one of the cards in the collector pack will basically be replaced with the list card, as far as I understand. I don't think they're doing the list card show up 1 out of every 8. I think it's every single pack. And what they're doing is they're choosing silver bordered cards from previous unsets to put into these collector packs. And on top of that, the one thing they're doing with this that is actually really juicy is they're making them foil. Unfoils are difficult to come by, right? Because these sets don't get opened with a great amount of frequency, so the foils are not common. And one of the foils that they put in there is Richard Garfield, okay? A foil Richard Garfield is an expensive chase card. It's a great include as one of the list cards, but here's the problem with the list that's making a bunch of unfans angry, and you have to understand that's who this is for. Wizards is specifically targeting the unfans by including Un cards and collector boosters. The people who want regular Magic cards do not want the Un cards, are not the target for this. It's very important to remember that. So what they did with this list is they front loaded it heavily with unstable cards. Unstable is the most recent unset that just came out. Super easy to get. There's tons of it everywhere. They only put 60 cards in the list to begin with, and a huge majority of them are these stupid unstable cards that you can get anywhere. So what should be a big draw, they couldn't help themselves. Instead of going, let's pick 60 banger cards that are guaranteed to please the unfolk, they went, you know what? They want this foil Richard Garfield. How do we make them chase it? So what they did was they just go, we'll put one or two actually people really wanted cards from the and then we'll put a bunch of but they made sure to just go, well, just pick unstable rares and stuff. As long as they have the rare symbol on it, people will feel like, whoa, I'm getting a rare from every pack. But the truth is, unstable rares are big fat zeros, right? So you want stuff from Unhinged, you want stuff from Unglued, because those sets are decades old, and finding the cards for them is impossible. I mean, if you go online to buy the singles, yes, but in person, like, dude, I have a massive collection, and I tend to keep all of my Magic bulk or anything like that. The only thing that would get thrown in the trash or bent in half and shoved under tables to balance them out, basically not treated like they were Magic cards, are uncards, like unstable specifically. I had so much unstable from trying to collect a set of it and everything. The cards are worthless. It's just a bunch of trash. So Wizards has upset the actual unfans by not making a good list in collector packs that are specifically targeting unfans. Now there's other things upsetting people too. I'm going to show you a card that is actually getting a bunch of uproar right now, and I'm just basically going to tell you the idea behind it, not read it word for word. So the idea behind this card is you're going to take a picture of yourself, right? You're going to pose as a Magic card and you're going to post it online. And as long as somebody responds to it, then you get a game mechanical bonus from it. All the specifics of the bonus, all that stuff aren't important. The important part is this is a Magic card that is using you as a social marketing tool. So that is the first mark against this. But I can say, you know what, the idea of, hey, taking a picture of yourself, posting it up, all this kind of stuff, it is kind of fun. But people are bringing up some valid points. One of them is that this is a card that's just going to make you feel like garbage if you don't have a social media following. So if nobody follows you on social media and nobody will like your posts or respond to them, then this becomes useless. But it actually gets worse from there, because this is a game that's not just played by adults. Sure, it says 13 plus on the package, but remember when Capenna was coming out and Wizard said, look, we know we have these Halo beverages, but don't have any drinks served in martini glasses, even if it's just water at your F&Ms, because people of all ages play this game. So people of all ages play this game. We have a fun joke set, which would be great for kids or whatever. So you're going to have kids what? Going on Twitter, posting these little posts, and oh, nobody responds to my posts except some strange dude on the internet who happens to be crawling through these posts. Or you can just turn around and look at, I don't know how well you guys are acquainted with Twitter, but Twitter is where I expect most people are going to post this kind of stuff. And Twitter is where you can post anything. Like there are almost no rules. You can send the most unwelcome, unwholesome pictures of your body to people. You can post it up. You can do whatever you want on Twitter. So you're just going to have this hashtag set up where people can roam through it. And like, ultimately, probably not that much will come of it, but it really does feel like a glaring error from a company that recognizes you can't trust people. Look at Arena. Arena has no in-game chat because they don't want people being awful to each other. Now they're encouraging you to go into the void of Twitter and hope for the best. And nothing good ever happens on Twitter. So that's a nightmare waiting to happen. This card is ill-advised. And honestly as well, just as a mythic, this is going to be a super disappointing card to get. I feel like a bunch of the mythics in this set, a lot of this unstuff is just garbage that's only good in a very, very narrow niche window. And also a bunch of them require you to have other people interactive. Like there's a lot of stuff you need to make this unset work. The pre-release is going to be kind of fun, but I'm thinking overall, looking at all this, that this is the death knell for the unsets, because this is not doing well. The store owners that I've talked to, one store owner just yesterday, think about this, we're in the middle of spoiler season, and a store owner said to me yesterday, Wizards didn't even tell anybody that this set isn't legal or half legal or whatever. So you got one store saying that in my city. You got another store in my city, I'm mid-conversation with him, and he goes, oh man, I gotta remember to reduce my Unfinity order. Like, Unfinity is a dog, okay? If you love on cards, fill your boots, because from this point forwards, we can almost guarantee that Wizards is going to say, we're done with this. They basically saw the previous unsets were a complete failure, and they've tried to take the problems of those and fix it with this unset, but it's not going to fix it. They're thinking, yo, this set is going to appeal to people who don't play and we're going to get everybody. But instead, what you've done is you've created a meal that's palatable to nobody. It's the complete opposite. You've just piled a bunch of crap that doesn't go together, and a bunch of people are unhappy. So you're only going to find the most rabid unfans who are excited about this, and rabid unfans aren't enough to save these unsets. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was just Dunzo. Speaking of Dunzo, let's talk about pre-releases, because pre-releases are done. Now, Wizards of the Coast isn't admitting that by saying we're still doing pre-releases, but they're really not. Here's how pre-releases used to work. You show up, you get a pre-release kit. That's it. Then slowly over time, Wizards are like, well, you know what? You can buy Planeswalker decks at the pre-releases. And then you know what? You can buy, we're going to send out a couple booster boxes to the pre-release. And then you know what? We're going to send out some set booster boxes. It got to the point where they would have a bunch of stuff available for sale at the pre-release, which, is it really a pre-release anymore? Well, yeah, because you can get set boosters now and some draft boosters, but you can't get as many as you want, or you can't get the collector booster or the bundle. Like, they kept one or two products back and went, it's a pre-release, but it's not. It's the event release. And that's how it's going to be going forward. Starting with the Brothers War, they are going to have all products available at the pre-release. So there's no way to justify calling this a pre-release unless, if this is technically acceptable to you, if all it takes for it to be considered a pre-release for you is to go, the cards aren't tournament legal for a week. So that's how it's going to work. Everything's going to be available pre-release weekend. You're going to be able to buy it all, open it all, do whatever you want with it. But in terms of official tournaments, Friday Night Magic and all that stuff, you can't use the cards for a week. And I don't care. That to me doesn't make it a pre-release. As far as I'm concerned, this ends pre-releases, and going forwards, we're only going to have releases. And they may as well, because pre-releases don't feel special like they did before in terms of you can only get a limited amount. It just feels like release day. By the time release week comes around, it doesn't feel like release week. It feels like we're already ready to move on to the next set because we are hungry vampires for new cards. That's the nature of the beast, right? So that is done. Speaking of the pre-releases as well, they are reversing course and going paper first again. So Brothers War will have the pre-release paper first, then digital. For the longest time, they would hose the paper pre-releases by having an arena digital release event like one day beforehand. But now they're flipping it around, so the Brothers War pre-release happens on the 11th, right? And then the actual one on, what's the date here? November 15th is when it'll be available on Arena. So we have that flipped around, and they're going to continue that with both Phyrexia All Will Be One and March of the Machines as well. And honestly, they should just keep going with that because it's a great way to do things. Now, let us take a look at the newest Secret Lair bonus card, my friends. This is another variation of Shadowborn Apostle. And look at the artwork. It is an absolute riot of color. I really like this version. So, if you don't know, Shadowborn Apostle is one of those crazy cards that you can play with any number of, right? It's only one black to put out, and it's got a really cool ability where you sacrifice 6 creatures named Shadowborn Apostle. I like that you can either put out normal copies of it, or if you can somehow make token copies, that counts. Or maybe if you had that on-card where you can change the name, you could sack it too. Not that you'd ever do that. But either way, you sack 6 of these clerics. They give up their lifeblood and their essence to summon up a demon. And I love that it's not keyed into any particular demon. They are just that good at creating a ritual that it can pull any particular demon you want across the blind eternities. It's like catnip to them, like, delicious cleric souls, right? Like, so awesome. And I love that this artwork kind of contradicts the nature of the card in terms of, look at how friendly and colorful and bright it is. You wouldn't expect a gathering of clerics like this, all of a sudden they pull out the sacrificial daggers and gank themselves, and they fall down, and their blood starts pooling. But while it's pooling, it starts to bubble and blacken and burble, and then it opens up into this like twilight gate where you can see the yawning eternity hell abyss beneath it, and a demon reaches up its hands and starts climbing out of this crazy bubbling pool of muck and blood, and it's just bellowing and cackling as steam is rising from it. I will destroy the world! And strewn all about it are these beautiful, colorful robes. It's just, I love the contrast between the dark nature of the card itself and this artwork, and I love that they are continuing along with this trend, right? We saw it for the persistent petitioners as well. I love these different art variations for the cards that you can have any number of in your deck. I think it's a really sweet maneuver. Now, my friends, that wraps up all of the news I have for today. Big thank you to my patrons for making sure that I can eat. I do love to eat. And to all the rest of you, I say thanks for coming by. I will see you all in the next video or for tonight's live stream.